Hello and welcome. I can't quite see everybody who's out there, but I hope everybody's having a good show so far. So we're going to be talking about mobile payments and MPoC. And I would like to introduce our panelists up on the stage now, please. A big round of applause for our panelists. Right, take a seat. Okay, so let's start off with who we are. So obviously, I'm Andrew Jamieson. I work for the council. Would you mind introducing yourselves in terms? So please.
Okay. I am Alder. I'm CISO at GetNet Brazil. GetNet is a technology company for payment solutions, and he's part of PagoNext, Santander Group's global payment hub. GetNet offers a complete ecosystems of solutions for entrepreneurs and merchants, and with the capacity to serve individuals who need to receive and make payments via card and the other payment methods. Yes.
Okay. Barry?
Hi, everyone. Barry Levett. I'm CEO of Mypinpad. So Mypinpad's a specialist soft POS provider. So we provide soft POS to customers in over 25 countries now, basically every continent except for Antarctica.
Hi, I'm Joachim Vance, Chief Security Architect for Verifone. Verifone, probably known in more as a hardware terminal vendor, but we are also working with software, soft POS and MPoC solutions.
Excellent. Okay. Before we get into the details of mobile, I'd like to start with a little bit of history. So can people tell me how they got into the payments industry? What was your first role in the payments industry?
My first job in industry payment was in 2009 in PCI DSS project in our company, in GetNet. It was a big project. It's so good for my career.
Excellent. Barry?
Somewhat accidentally, I founded a company called SmartPesa. We were looking at doing agency banking, really, ATM or ATM through a mobile in various parts of the world. And once you do that, then you back into payments. And then once soft POS came along, we moved from the terminals into the soft POS MPoC world.
Okay, Joachim?
I did some banking, bank-to-bank and business-to-business stuff back in the late 90s, but I think for payments specifically, back in 2009, I helped develop the cryptography and the key management systems for a very popular payment encryption system. At one point, when we stopped counting, it was like over 50 billion transactions and many millions of devices, and still is used in major retailers today.
Well, fantastic. Okay, let's get into some of the mobile questions then. So I'm going to start with you, Barry. Do you think when we look at the current market into the future, do you think that mobile payment systems, mobile acceptance systems, can coexist with terminals? Or is it a situation where there's going to be one that, quote unquote, wins, that takes the market?
I think in every market it's going to be different. Some markets are going to accelerate. What we think is the cost pressures are going to force mobile, or effectively what is called mobile now, to win. However, I think it's not going to win with your common hand phone. The format is going to look a lot more like a terminal in most cases, at least in the bulk volume, as opposed to the SME volume. But the total cost of ownership in the life cycle on the mobile side is very, very more advantageous against PTS devices.
Okay. What do you think, Joachim, as somebody who works for a company that might be considered traditionally a terminal manufacturer? How do you see the future?
You didn't say buggy whip manufacturer, so I'm thankful for that. I think it's going to be, it's interesting what you say, because I actually kind of agree with what you're saying there about the mobile devices will start to change and be more special purpose or look more like a traditional payment device today. I don't think there's going to be a winner. I think, to me, what we're seeing is in the payments industry, it's all about choice. Like retailers want to have the choices that they want to do. I know we're going to talk about a little bit about markets, but I think for certain kind of markets and for certain kind of businesses and startups, I think they're going to want to go to mobile. But I think you have larger retailers that want to have the option of being able to do line busting. So I think it's going to be a mix. I don't think we're going to see a winner, a clear winner. I do think we're going to see convergence, though, between a traditional payment device and like an MPoC or a COTS device. I think part of the challenge is that there's still a long tail of payments, right? So you can't get away from chip, basically doing the chip as opposed to contactless in some markets, or even magstripe for gift cards or for some other special purpose cases. So you're going to need that flexibility to be able to do pretty much all of the above.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned markets. So, Elder, are there any, in the markets you work in, are there specific markets, specific industries that are more happy to use mobile POS than others?
Yes, yes. And in our specific market in Brazil, the solutions, the MPoC solutions are indicated more for dentists, doctors, entrepreneurs, and others. And for other business, supermarkets and the others, PTS POI is more usage because is more stable and reliable for this type of the business.
Okay. On that point, and I'll go to Barry on this one, what is the acceptance of this like from the consumer point of view? Are there problems with how COTS devices are made and configured now that make the transaction process not as comfortable, not as seamless, not as useful as traditional terminals? Or do you find that there's no problem in the market with them?
I think the starting point is no problem in the market. There are particular markets, particularly high risk or low trust society type markets where there's still a learning curve. I think one thing that Apple really did to help is making and receiving payments on an iPhone became something normal. They really did help propel the industry into normalizing using a mobile phone for payment aspects. I think that's one mega trend that's really helped. It's helped on that education side almost by accident, even though that's not the operating system. That's obviously the primary one. The other aspect is even on the PTS terminals or this transition to Android. The drive on the non-iOS side towards Android being the common operating system has also allowed a larger ecosystem, not just in payments, but a larger ecosystem that spans the PTS and mobile phones and the new soft-POS acceptance. So it's sort of a convergence of these factors where things like, of course we use a phone to make a payment or accept a payment. Why wouldn't you? That seems to be where we are at, and certainly in some markets in Western Europe and Brazil, where that's very much the case.
Okay. And so, Joachim, I'm interested in your point of view on this as well, because you'll be familiar with the EMV Level 1 process on terminals, which is very stringent about what's called the contactless volume, the area in which the terminal can read the card. We had Oliver from EMV on stage here yesterday talking about new EMV approval methods for reduced volume or reduced area. How do you see that aspect when you look at the use of terminals or the use of COTS devices in terms of the reliability, the functionality of accepting a card?
Yeah, no, I think EMV has done a good job of trying to account for different use cases, and so there's not a whole lot of difference necessarily between. Well, it is weird. I mean, there's a lot more focus that's been going on payment devices to make sure that the L1 kernels are handling EMV appropriately. And it is going to be a little bit weird because we'll probably run into some issues on COTS devices where EMV doesn't work the way that we expect it to as far as receiving. But I think in general, it's not going to be a major issue. I think where it gets more difficult, and this is really more not on the use side, but really on the certification side, is that a lot of organizations haven't considered that it's not just about developing a payment application that's, say, MPoC compliant, but you do have to go and still manage your EMV certifications with that application. So there's going to be a little bit more complexity on the EMV side than I think a lot of providers understand.
Okay. So all of you have been involved with the process of developing some sort of mobile system, mobile acceptance system. If there's somebody in the audience or somebody watching this on YouTube, it'll be on YouTube later on, thinking about this, what advice would you give? What would you recommend they do now? What should they be prepared for?
I recommend the sorry.
It's okay. I tell you what, I'll come back to you. Let's start with Barry then.
I think the starting point, if anybody's thinking about doing it themselves, is think again. Whatever budget you had, times 3, and then have ongoing costs. I'm very much in the camp of specialists should handle this, both on the security side and on the compliance side. And there's mechanisms for good providers to handle all that complexity for you. The app developers need to focus on great experiences, on providing services to merchants and so on, not dealing with the security and element side. I think there's a lot of options now. There's more options, but there's not many that can operate at real scale. What we're seeing in SoftPOS is the volumes are dramatic now. So whoever you choose, make sure that they can scale with the volumes. That would be some general advice that I would give.
Okay, thank you. Joachim?
I mean, I don't think you're going to vibe code in your MPoC application, right? Not to mention the fact that there's major security issues with trying to deal with vibe coding anything at this point in time. If you've seen any of the news that came out recently about some vibe-coded apps and some of the security issues and privacy details have been revealed in very sensitive areas, I think you have to be careful about those kind of things. MPoC is not something to be taken lightly. So it's a great option in the market. It's going to give great opportunities for being able to do payments on COTS devices in ways that are really secure, that wasn't available before on a lot of the applications that came before. I mean, I'm not saying the applications that came before were vibe-coded in any way, but they didn't necessarily take into account the long-term issues and looking at the broader issues of security, rooted devices, risks of malware running on the same devices as the payment application, where MPoC does take into account those kind of things. There's a lot of complexity in building out and doing the certification. I already mentioned the EMV. So I think it's very hard to start in that marketplace, but at the same time, what's been opening up is the ability for providers to provide SDKs for integration, right? So you can write a payment app that doesn't do payments, but it uses an MPoC application or an MPoC SDK to be able to do that. So I think the industry is kind of growing in such a way that there are ways to be able to play in that space, and there definitely is a need for customization when it comes to MPoC. Because if you're running a taco business, you might want to use an MPoC application, but you want to be specific to being able to handle things that are specific to your kind of restaurant business. If you're a hairdresser, you might need to have different needs in that payment application. So I think customization is the name of the game. I would not focus on building an MPoC application, but integrating with an MPoC application that gives you the ability to give that customization to the marketplace.
Interesting. Elder, do you have a response, or should I move on? Do you have any recommendations for somebody who is looking at implementing MPoC?
Yes. I believe the company that needed a great team with cryptography and software security skills. I think that's the main point, because we had a project and we needed these skills to accelerate and to deliver our project. It's main suggestion for me.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to come back to you, Joachim, for a second. You're talking about, if you're a taco salesman or a hairdresser or whatever, you might want different things. Are there specific industry verticals where MPoC is going to thrive more than others? And specifically, when we first started on the journey of mobile payments, a lot of the talk was around micro merchants. And you mentioned queue busting before for larger merchants. It seems to be expanding beyond that. Are we going to see mobile payments in every location, in every type of merchant, or there are going to be segments?
I think it's going to depend. I mean, you're right. I think the largest volume is really going to come from micro merchants still, because it's the kind of the easy to get into the business kind of model, right? Whereas they're not going to buy a payment terminal off the bat, right? Startups are the other place that you're going to see a lot of kind of adoption of MPoC kind of from the start. I've been surprised, though, that the interest into the larger merchants in terms of what they want to do with MPoC. And a lot of them just have different creative ideas. I mean, this is where the marketplace expands, right? Where you have new opportunities that you didn't think about before. Some may want to have like a kiosk kind of approach where they don't necessarily, they want to integrate payments into a kiosk, right? Or a tablet. Line busting is kind of a big deal. I am seeing, though, demand from the larger merchants that they want special purpose COTS devices, which is interesting, right? They're not going to just go to buy the top tier Android or Apple devices and then go do MPoC on that. Some of them will, but a lot of them have different business needs for what they're trying to accomplish. So we're going to see a lot more of the, okay, I'm buying a special purpose COTS device for the purposes of doing MPoC on it. But I don't think it's going to be their primary business. I think for the larger merchants, there will be some that are 100% MPoC, but I think right now what we're seeing is it's going to mix. Like they'll do it more for line busting or certain kiosk kind of applications. Okay.
I just want to see if you've got any input on that, Barry, or I'll move on to the next question.
I would disagree with the point about saying that the largest volume is going to come from SME. Certainly the largest number of merchants are probably going to come from SME. But what we do see in the volumes is order of magnitude differentials between enterprise type use cases and SME use cases. I mean, it's not even chalk and cheese. There's something more, a bigger aspect relevant to this. I think on the enterprise side, if you're talking about standard retail, it's going to take a long time to switch because of the need for DIP and already embedded hardware and such like. But when it comes to things like deliveries, B2B, where there's other problems that you're trying to solve other than just payments on the enterprise side, particularly things around proof of delivery, reconciliations and so on, that drives not huge numbers of merchants, but huge numbers of transactions.
Yep.
Right? So on a total volume side, I think we're going to switch into enterprise is actually going to be the biggest provider of volume, not merchants.
Okay, interesting. And Alda, do you see any specific industry types in your markets? Is it small merchants? Is it big merchants?
No.
Just general?
Just general, general, yes.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I'll come back to Barry with a question on once again, when we started down the journey of mobile acceptance and mobile payments, it's been quite a while now, I would say. You know, we're heading on to, probably 10 years-ish, give or take on each side. The mobile operating systems were very different back then to how they are now. And they've become increasingly secure, I would say, provided increasing functionality. When we look into the future, are there things that you know are coming in, for example, future versions of Android, which you think will help with mobile payments? Are there things you wish they would do in the operating system to make things better?
I mean, the biggest change is Android and adding TE. So basically, secure storage is basically a requirement. I think the biggest factor is actually just better NFCs right now. I mean, we know we've built, if we go through our background, we have done 4 CPoC certifications, 2 SPoC, and now 4 MPoC. And we're on our next iteration of the system. And I just put that again, first of all, to say, it's not that we're bad at building software, it's the systems have got better, but also how you use the systems have got a lot better.
Yeah.
I think those that come later are going to try and take certain shortcuts that are going to become available, but it's going to take a long time before they become generally available across the whole Android, right? Some take, okay, we're going to use Knox on Samsung, for example, and that's not going to work. It doesn't scale. You can't be hardware-centric. I think the general improvement in the devices has been useful. I think we're in the realm of secure enough, and the standard MPoC is a good standard. I think the biggest wish really is around NFC power and location standardization, more than on the security side.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any input on this, Joachim?
I mean, I generally agree. I think that it's interesting because we have what does the standard allow, and what's good enough, and what does the industry or even consumers care about. And I think that there's a disconnect there about maybe what is good and what is good enough. It's too bad that it's not more broadly accepted. Like if all your current Pixel devices for the last 7 years, all the Samsung devices for the last 5 years. A few other devices, vendors for Android anyway, have a stronger version of the TE, right? I mean, there's a stronger secure element. And now with the secure enclave on iPhones, right, you have the similar kind of aspect that's going on there. So those are great technologies, I think, that will build confidence into that these are appropriate platforms to be able to use for being able to accept payments on these devices. I think we're just going to see more of that, right? It's going to grow to a broader set of COTS devices. I am concerned about when we get to the point where there's some maybe major vulnerabilities that demonstrate themselves in the marketplace where somebody takes advantage of it, and that hurts MPoC altogether. So I think as an industry, I mean, that's why MPoC's built the way it is with A&M. I really appreciate that. I mean, and we haven't really talked about that, but I mean, what people don't realize about MPoC is it's not just the payment application. It's that you're monitoring, you have an attestation monitoring service that's providing confidence for not only the merchant, and maybe if you knew that it was using MPoC, the consumer, but also for the payment acceptance solution provider and the acquirer, that hey, if there's a problem with this Android device or an iPhone device that needs a critical upgrade or whatever, that we can stop the payments until the device is secured or updated, or if it's been rooted and we think there's a risk here, right? So I think that, those kind of things do provide the MPoC program a lot more legs on it in terms of security and risk reduction than normal payment acceptance on a COTS device would normally offer you.
Yep. Oh. Do you agree? Do you have in your markets, is there a large range of different Android versions, for example? Do you find the A&M system is useful to secure MPoC?
Yeah, yes. I believe we have a thing now, AI, artificial intelligence, and I think that we reviewed the MPoC solutions with this the future with AI and the other situations. We need to check in every time to do the good solutions, the good MPoC solutions, and secure solutions for our customers.
Yep. Actually, a very good point. I'd like to continue on with AI, and I'll go to Barry on this one. Is AI going to play an increasing role in A&M in securing transactions around these mobile systems, do you think?
For sure. I mean, we're going to have AI in everything. Everybody knows that. And unfortunately, AI has bolted before it's probably ready, at least in many security type aspects. But in internal systems, having an extra set of logic that's heuristic based really does help if you're dealing with A&M type systems, because if you can't have heuristics, you have to code rules for everything that can happen, which means you're always trying to close the stable door after the horse is bolted, right? So I think it's going to be a combination of rules-based, but you do want AI or at least machine learning type systems, if not AI, to do that monitoring, particularly on that side. So I'm more in the machine learning side of AI in terms of the drivers on this, as opposed to it's not ChatGPT, right?
Okay. Any thoughts on that, Joachim, before I move to the next
I think the only thing I would comment there is, and I agree, I think it's going to be more, maybe agentic or even client or device-driven, maybe for what we're trying to talk about and the things that AI can offer in terms of, is the device still secure? I would like to see Google do a better job of opening up APIs to be able to support MPoC applications, to be able to determine, are there any risk with the device? Right now, there's some aspects that could be accessed by an MPoC application, but there's still parts of it that are kind of exclusive to Google. Okay.
So I've got some really great representatives of the payment industry here who have done some really exciting things in the past and developed very novel solutions and so forth. So while I've got you here, what I'd like to ask, and I'll start with Joachim, what does payment acceptance look like 10 years from now? What are people using to pay? How does the payment work? Just in, as high level as you like, payments in 10 years. If we have this panel 10 years from now, I'll probably be retired, but there'll be somebody else here. What happens in payments?
So I think it's going to be a lot more about accessories. Like I almost exclusively pay with my watch now.
Okay.
I almost never pay with my phone because it's more accessible, right? I think we're going to see more of that. Maybe it'll be built into your clothing, right? Where your payment device will be, or your payment identity might be built into clothing or something that, like your eyeglasses. I think we're going to see a lot more biometric payment acceptance, so we'll start to see that. It'll be interesting to see how that looks on an MPoC kind of world on a COTS device, because right now it's going to be very special purpose built. And I think we're going to see a lot more diversity in terms of moving from pure payment devices, special built payment devices and MPoC. We're going to see a lot more hybrid kind of going on. With POI version 7 for payment devices, it does start to accept third-party apps.
Yes.
That starts to get this weird crossover between, is it an open, say Android device, is it a payment device? I think we're going to see that accelerate more. We're going to see a lot more crossover and just more choice.
Interesting. Barry?
Well, the more and more consolidation, basically. So we have the anti-fragmentation. I mean, we tried the wallet experimentation some time ago, and particularly in APAC, and that disintegrated a little bit. More open, more consolidation, and so on, but also more invisible.
Yeah.
Right. Every app is going to be a payment app to make or receive. It's going to be pretty invisible. You talk about using devices or watch to make a payment. Likewise, anything could be, set up to receive the payment. We envisage every merchant app should be an acceptance app. Like why have payment here and your application here? That doesn't make sense, right? It should be the same. So I think payments as a thing is going to become more and more infrastructure. It's quite in your face because of the existing hardware and the way in which SoftPOS have been implemented now. But as you get more and more merchant apps taking it in, it disappears a little bit into the background.
Yeah, interesting. Aldo?
I have the same opinion of my colleagues, but I think that we will have many types of devices that they can do transactions, can do payments. And it's a good challenge for us in cybersecurity teams and certifications teams.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I'd just like to kind of end on that point and have the audience think about the fact that when was the last time you had a dedicated camera? It's certainly been a while for me. However, the camera industry has not gone away, and I would say that in your pocket, you actually have multiple cameras because there's multiple cameras on here. You will probably have multiple devices with multiple cameras. I think the same thing, I agree, is going to happen with the payments industry. Payments don't go away. They become ubiquitous. They become invisible. They become secure. And they're probably going to become mobile. So I'd like to thank my panel for being here. I'd like the audience to thank my panel as well. And I hope to see you later on.